Alrighty, so it is Sunday, but I had watched Deadpool and Wolverine Friday night. Um, I wanted to come out with this review Friday night, but God, was I tired after the movie, and I just did not have time yesterday. Barely have time today, but I want to get it done as soon as possible. And so, how this is going to go is I'm going to kind of go over it, for the first few minutes, and then I'll go into spoilers. Also, for people who pay attention to the background, where is it? That is new. That is a Boromir knockoff sword I got from a shop. And then that is also new. It's just a Templar helmet where, I went on a little trip and there was a guy at this little store selling a helmet just like that one. And, usually on Amazon, they're like $70 max. And so I was like, hey, what's the price? He's like, well, I couldn't find a price tag. So, he was like, for you, I'll do 126, 130. I was like, no, you're out of your goddamn mind. So I ordered that. Finally came in. Pretty nice. But yeah. Another thing that I wanted to showcase, which will be coming in a couple days, and I will showcase it then, is the popcorn bucket from Deadpool and Wolverine. So here's the thing. There's the really funny popcorn bucket where it's Wolverine's face and his mouth is open. I don't care for that. Like, I get that it's funny, but I feel like it's only, like, the effect is only funny, like, when you initially buy it and you're in the theater joking with your friends. After that, it's kind of like, this is dumb. But they came out with more, and the one I was looking forward to was the Deadpool popcorn bucket, where it's like a Marvel Zombies skeleton Deadpool head, where like the mask is ripped and you see the skull, and it's got a propeller on its head. That's how it flies around. I was like, I want that. So I thought by going to AMC, because it's an AMC exclusive, on a Friday night that they would have it. I show up on a Friday night, and there's like 60 plus people in line at the concessions, and I'm like, okay. And I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, I don't see anything, and we're still in line. I'm like, I'm looking around. I don't see it anywhere. And finally, I was like, they don't have it. So, we went and watched the movie, which, I will say, I hate AMC theaters. I don't know if you have to get like the most expensive 40X version, but we got IMAX, and I swear IMAX used to not be so gross, but you walk in, the seats are so tight and small and it's not like I'm an ultra wide person. I mean, I have like wide shoulders, so sometimes it makes it hard for my arms when I'm sitting, but it's like one armrest per person. So like, my wife is sitting next to me. We have to share an armrest. The random dude next to me, we have to like try to share an armrest, or like one person gets it and the other person doesn't. And so the whole movie, I'm sitting here like this, like, wow, this is extremely uncomfortable. Sticky floors, loud ass people. They're on their phones, phones going off. Like, it just kind of sucks where it's like, I used to love going to the theater growing up, but as an adult, it's fucking miserable. There's a brew house I almost 95% of the time go to because it's just better. But yeah, we're already 4 minutes in. I can talk about this more in depth in another video, but Deadpool and Wolverine. So I wrote some notes, and I'm just kind of go through them. And so the very first note I have is basically that you can tell this is a Disney MCU movie, because I recently had watched the Deadpool 1 and 2 and Logan and stuff to prepare for this movie. I'd watched them before, but when I watched Deadpool 1, it definitely feels like a very, very small scale movie, low budget, but not in a bad way. Very self-contained story. Deadpool 2 felt like they had the budget, so they wanted to go a little bit more grandiose, but still kept it like pretty like self-contained Deadpool story. And I wouldn't say it has world-ending effects, and it's not like, oh my god, the villain wants to destroy, the Earth, because even when you see Fire Fist in the future, it's not like he's ruled the world. He's just another villain of the week. So it felt nice and contained. And then you jump into this movie, and it's just, it feels like every other I'm gonna kill the world, every universe, multiverse, like the end of everything. And you're like, so we're going right back to that. Okay. Kind of lackluster, but won't get into those spoilers just yet. Let's see, the second part. Okay, so here's the thing. I obviously the movie, has a lot of meta humor and stuff, and they even make the joke like we're gonna have a lot of cameos, which it's like they were funny, but there were times where it almost felt like if there weren't these cameos, this movie would be like 30 minutes plus shorter, and kind of the reliance on cameos and stuff, and besides, I mean, it doesn't even really bring anything to the story. It's just, hey, look at that. Hey, it's kind of like the jingling the keys in your face. Like, oh, I think it would have been better if some of the cameos they showed, either it would have been a little bit longer so you could actually get like some worth out of it, or it does something for the story. Now, there are some cameos where they actually do kind of bleed into the story, which, is appreciated. The cinematography, doing fight scenes, okay, yeah. I thought the fight scenes between Deadpool and Wolverine, there are 2 of them, roughly. 2 extended fight scenes. I thought they were both wonderful. And what's nice is the fact that since they're both unkillable, basically, you can make the fights go absolutely crazy. And it's just fun. Now, the stakes are kind of like, because, like, they can't necessarily die. So, you are like, okay, they're just going to beat each other up till they're tired. But, it's still pretty crazy. I thought all the fight scenes were filmed well. There were some CGI parts that felt odd. And that's another thing, going back to, like, when they're trying to do more grandiose stuff. The CGI seems more blatant. There's a scene towards the end where it was just so obvious CGI where, after the movie, I even asked my wife, and she was like, yeah, that scene was so obviously computer generated, it just didn't look well. It's like, yeah, okay, so great to see Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine. With how they bring him back and what they do, I almost wish this movie would have came out either right before Logan, or a little bit after, just with the timing of everything. But, like, obviously it's cool to see, I don't even know if the comic accurate Wolverine is the right thing to say, but it was cool to see him, do more Wolverine things. And I won't spoil it yet, but in the trailer, so the trailer even says like, this Wolverine let down his entire planet. When you find out what that is, in my personal opinion, it was pretty flat and kind of dumb. The villain was okay, kind of an interesting character, but they really do nothing with it, unfortunately. Like, they could have gone into it so much more, and they start to at first, and then they just don't, sadly. My final note before I, go into spoilers is I put, this movie can be a disconnect for standard audience, as there are many references to old TV shows, movies, comic books, and studio drama. Okay, so here was something, because I had to explain a lot of it to my wife. And, you could be like, well, why would you be watching Deadpool 3 if you don't understand, like, whatever. Which, I had her watch Deadpool 1 and 2 and Logan. So she understood some of those references from that. It's been a long time since she's watched X-Men 1 and 2, 3. But to understand the references in this movie, you have to have watched X-Men 1, 2, 3, Deadpool 1 and 2, Logan, X-Men Origins, Wolverine, First Class, Days of Future Past, maybe Apocalypse and Phoenix, but also it's not even, and you have to have watched Loki. I never watched Loki, so I know there's that fog monster from Loki, but I was like, I don't, it's, I guess, it just eats worlds or something. But then it showed the TVA, and I was like, oh, okay, they explained it enough. I think there was a character, the woman at the end of the movie, I think she's from the TV show. I don't know, maybe. But then there's also like real like inside jokes where there's a certain song that plays at the beginning of the movie, which is a nod at, I think, X-Men 1, where it's a brief moment where Pyro turns on the radio and that song's playing. Wolverine is disgusted, turns it off. You see a certain character where the comical aspect of that character is the studio drama of that character movie. Behind the scenes, there's jokes made about like the actors' real lives. There's so much you have to know to fully grasp like the jokes being made. And I think that can kind of be a disconnect for people. I guess they can look at it afterwards, but I am not necessarily a person who feels like I should have to watch a movie 3 times to be like, oh, I get it now, So take that how you will. If you're willing to do all that research so you can have a better time understanding the movie, cool. Otherwise, meh. But that is really it for the non-spoiler part. Overall, and here's the thing, because it's going to sound like I'm complaining nonstop. It was a fun movie to watch. And I hate this, but if you love theater crowds and experiences, that was a theater movie. People in the crowd were clapping, going like, woo, oh my God, standing up like, fuck yeah. Like, they were going crazy. So if that's your thing, this is a theater movie. I did not like that. But that's it for the non-spoilers. I'd say go watch it, honestly. It's a fun time. You're going to have a fun time watching it. So I'm going to go to spoilers now. So the first part, which they introduce in the movie, is Vanessa basically dumps Wade. They kind of just, I wouldn't say it was mutual. It seemed more like he kind of has a freak out. But what annoyed me with that is the first movie, he's like getting back together with Vanessa. That's all that matters. The second movie, she dies, and he just, he wants to go to heaven to be with her. And instead of going to heaven and being with her, Cable goes back in time to save Deadpool. And then Deadpool goes back in time to save Vanessa. And they were talking about having kids and stuff. And then it just cuts to, he tried to join the Avengers. They said no, and then he got all mopey, depressed. And, she was like, you gotta pull yourself up. And, he has a freak out, and they just kind of break up. And I was like, where did that come from? So what if he couldn't join the fucking Avengers? He made X-Force. You telling me he couldn't make another X-Force or something else? It just felt a little odd, and him being so mopey that they break up when they were so ready, like I went to heaven with you. Like, I went back in time to save you. We're going to have kids. And then it's just like, nah. I just thought that could have been played a little better, where you could have looped in how he has Cable's time travel watch. You could have had it where what happens is, no matter how many times he goes back in time to save Vanessa, she keeps dying, and he has to keep going back in time, and he realizes, like, oh, this sucks. Like, I can't do this. And then you could even have it where he tells her, and she's like, I don't want to keep dying. Like, I can't do this if you're just going to keep going back in time and saving me. And have, like, a little bit more of, like, in my opinion, better reason for them to have a rift. And it could have played perfectly from going in from Deadpool 2, but they did not do that. I was curious why Deadpool did not ask Cable for help, and you could have even had a different actor play Cable, so it's not like, oh, Josh Brolin, who's Thanos and, Cable, now that he's in the MCU. Who knows? Because, Cable was like, I'm going to stick around and make sure you don't fuck this world up. So I thought maybe we'd see Cable in the void or something, but we did not. The intro to the movie I thought was interesting because I love Logan, the movie. I think Logan is like one of the best Marvel movies ever made, and the intro to this was pretty wild. Where I don't know if a slap in the face is the right word, but to basically sour the ending of Logan by digging up his dead body and stuff. Like, it was funny, obviously. I was just like, oh wow, like, whew, they're like going hard with that. But it's whatever. It just was like, whoa, damn, wasn't expecting that. And the intro, obviously, right from the get-go, they don't hold back. It's gory, it's ultra violent, and comical. And again, that goes to the song they play, that NSYNC song or the Backstreet Boys song. Going back to X1, I think, or X2, where Pyro turns on the radio and it's that song, and Logan's like, ah, fuck, like, turns it off. And so it's like that deep cut reference. At least I think. That's the only thing I could think of why they would do that, but who knows. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go into the cameos. And mind you, like I said earlier, the cameos that stick around for the most part are cool, somewhat. The first one I'm going to say is Channing Tatum as Gambit. And that's the deep cut joke where, like, I had to sit there and explain to my wife, like, oh no, like, the whole joke is that they were going to make a Gambit movie with Channing Tatum like 10 years ago, and it went into development hell, and it kept saying, we're going to make it. Oh, we're not going to make it. We're going to make it. And so what's funny is to see him as Gambit. And I will say, I like the look. They made him look like Gambit. People were saying they didn't like that he was kind of bulky. I didn't mind it. And the funny part about his, him being Gambit is he has the Louisiana accent, but they play it up to the extreme, except for I have met a couple of people from Louisiana, from the coast, who kind of sound like that. Not as crazy as that, but similar. And so obviously they're playing it up, but it does make me wonder, could we get a Gambit movie with Channing Tatum where he cools it on the accent and it could work? Because his scenes were great, at least in my opinion. Elektra is the other cameo, which is odd because, my wife was like, who's that? And Elektra, she has a couple lines, doesn't really do anything. So I was kind of confused why they brought back Elektra. It seemed like a lot of the early 2000s stuff. I thought it would have been funnier to bring Ben Affleck's Daredevil, and I just feel like the jokes could have, written themselves at that point. You could have had a Martha moment, whatever. Him with Blind Owl, like a joke there, just stuff like that. She just doesn't really do anything in the movie. Elektra. I feel like you could have, I don't know. Ask Kristen, what is her name? That played Mary Jane from the old Spider-Man movies. Be like, or, bring someone back from those that's not from No Way Home. I don't know. The last cameo, well, next to last, Blade. It was awesome seeing Wesley Snipes back as Blade. Although, again, he doesn't really do anything in particular. He kind of does that, he has that little shuriken that he throws and catches it like that. He has a machete, which I don't remember if that's from Blade Trinity, but I thought he'd have his iconic sword, but he didn't. His outfit looked a little different. I didn't really recognize it, but it was pretty cool. And of course, he made the joke again where in the first movie it's some motherfuckers always trying to skate uphill, and in this one it's some motherfuckers are still trying to skate uphill. It's like, okay, all right, you got me. The fourth cameo was X-23, Laura from Logan, and I didn't like it. Hers felt like something where they should have definitely done more with, but didn't. She basically quickly sits down, kind of is like, my Logan, was I knew him for a week, but he was a great guy who did what he had to do in the end. And he's like, whoever you're looking for, I'm not the right guy. And she's like, you're never the right guy. And there's just nothing more. You know, it felt more like they just wanted to have a scene with her and Logan at the end being happy. I was like, yeah. But again, it's like, that's not her Logan. I mean, to be fair, she only did know her Logan for a week. So maybe you could make something work. But I just felt her cameo was wasted because all four of these people at the end are like fighting goons. Fighting the goons. And it almost quick cuts where I remember Gambit doing some cool stuff where he throws his cards and blows people up, but everyone else, it was just kind of, you know, like with Elektra, it's like, what can you really do? With Blade, it was pretty cool. I was almost hoping for Blade, they would, you know, somehow pull out like vampires or something for him to fight, like a little scene where it's like nighttime and he has to fight vampires or something. I think that would have been a little cool because you already got them there for the rest of the movie. Might as well have like a little scene where it's like them versus their, you know, counterpart for a little bit. Because we're throwing in cameos anyways. But and yes, the next part, which is the void itself, the Badlands, the Borderlands, whatever. Cool idea because it almost is like them physically representing studios throwing away shit until maybe they want to pull it back out one day, so then they can pull out of the void. And I guess I just had wished they would use the setting a little bit more. There's so many Easter eggs you see in the background, which I felt like they could have used as sets. Because initially they're just kind of fighting in like an open white desert, it looks like. And I just felt like they could have used a little bit more background props or something. Like using Ant-Man, Giant Man's dead body. It's like, wow, that's intense. Seeing the, you know, a Sentinel's leg and they use it as a rocket boost to get away from the base. I was like, that's neat. It's the subtle little like, you know, oh, it's that thing. Like, oh, cool. And they're using it. It's being used, you know, in the movie. Like, that's cool. Because you see like the Milano, you see some of the circle ships from Endgame, Captain America's shield, like the original Captain America shield. I think you see Better Ray Bill, his helmet, or like OG Thor's helmet. I couldn't tell. I was trying to be like, what? And I must have actually missed this cameo because this was probably the funniest cameo. A very well executed joke, which was Chris Evans as Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four movie from way back when. Because you think it's Captain America because he's wearing blue and has reddish gloves. And so Deadpool's like, oh my god, you know, it's Captain America. And so when the bad guys come, Deadpool's like, you know, he's going to say the line and he's like, Avengers, like Deadpool saying that. And then Chris Evans goes, flame on, and turns into the Human Torch. And you're like, oh, wow, that is like, that is from forever ago. I don't know if it makes people feel nostalgic for those Fantastic Four movies, but it was so funny and so out there where you're like, oh, okay, that happened. And yeah, and that kind of leads me into like the villain, Cassandra Nova, which is Charles Xavier's twin. It's neat in a sense that you basically get to see what if Charles Xavier was evil. And, you know, she does cool stuff where I almost wish we could have seen Wanda do it in Multiverse of Madness. But of course it was PG-13, so they couldn't go hard, which is dumb. But she's like putting her fingers in people's heads and like making their eyes pop out and stuff. But with the Human Torch, she literally rips his skin off while he's alive. And then he just falls into a pile of bones and guts. And, you know, she just morphs Wolverine into the ground and just like throws him around. And it was things like that where I go, you can't show us her doing that, something so powerful, and then every second where she has the possibility to kill Wolverine and Deadpool, she just doesn't. Or monologues, or, you know, just kind of throws them around the wall. I was like, oh, is this what we're doing? Really? And obviously, this movie isn't the only one guilty of it. So many movies do it, but it's like, man, you showed her just rip the skin off somebody in a second, and do these crazy things to Logan and Deadpool. But you're telling me she can't rip the skin off Deadpool? She can't rip him, like atomize him, and then bury each piece in cement, throw it into space, something with Logan, rip the adamantium out of his body, something. I just, I wanted just a little bit more unique imagery, because seeing her rip the skin off Johnny Storm was just like, oh, wow. It would have been crazy to have seen her try to do that to Wolverine, but he's like healing. Like, she rips his skin off, but he's like healing. Or, she plays around with him where she just like pops his claws out and is like, puts him back in or something. I wanted more of the visual horror from her character, which we sadly really didn't get, unfortunately. And yeah, it just kind of bummed me out just a little bit. I did forget and this is where it goes more into cameos, where I was like, it's neat, but what's the purpose? Because when he's looking for a Wolverine, it quickly cuts through a bunch of Wolverines, where it's like the Uncanny X-Men cover of Crucified Wolverine, where it's like visually cool to see, but Hulk versus Wolverine, it's like subtle, neat, like, there's a joke of Henry Cavill being Wolverine, which was, funny. I just thought, instead of doing just, the different Deadpool variants, it's like, well, you already had those actors there. Why don't you bring them in? They showed Old Man Logan. It's like, fuck it. Bring Old Man Logan with the mutant Hulk baby. Crucified Wolverine, Henry Cavill's Wolverine. Like, fucking bring them back in for the last fight. That, like, why not? Because they bring in all these alternate Deadpools, which the main ones you see is Dogpool and Nicepool. But by the end, you see a bunch of different variants. And they just don't do anything with them. They tell you that the variants are crazy and murderous, and they do a cool fight scene, but that's about it. There's no substance of, like, why are they all crazy? They all work for Cassandra Nova, but they're in their own area. Like, what? Funny seeing like a Wild West Deadpool and Headpool, and like a Ronin Deadpool. But I just wish they had done something more with it. That might sound nitpicky, but I just wanted a little bit more. But I'm trying to think. That might be it. Because, like, it's just kind of me going through each piece. And, like, I want to restate, it was a fun movie. It just, the plot, I don't know, the plot just annoyed me with the reality itself is going to end unless Deadpool helps. Like, all universes as we know it, like, it just went from the second movie where it's, we got to stop Cable. Oh, wait, no, we actually got to stop the Juggernaut. Okay, two. If you don't help, every reality, it's all going to come crumbling down, and the Time Ripper, and she's going to destroy every universe, and it just kind of, I hope at some point we can get back to, it doesn't have to be universe-ending shit. Like Guardians 3, it's not like a world-ending thing. It's, we gotta stop this guy who's experimenting on animals because he's a fucking psycho. You're like, oh, thank God it's not another world-ending plot. So, fun movie, but I hope after this, because they have their trilogy, they kind of calm it down and introduce Deadpool, maybe as like a side character for now in other Marvel stuff. Like, he just appears, he's kind of like the Stan Lee cameo now, where he just appears in movies, and then we maybe either get it like the team up movie where he shows up in, and then a Deadpool movie after that. But me personally, I feel like we're good on the Deadpool stuff for now. They kind of gave everyone what they wanted. Maybe one day they'll do a Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. I don't know. But I think, you know, I'm good. But man, the theater ate it up. The theater fucking loved it. They were going crazy. And when I get the Headpool popcorn bucket, hopefully before the week's end, I'll review that too. Because from the couple of videos I've seen, it looks pretty dope. So I guess that's going to be it for this video. Again, it does sound like, you know, more pros than cons. But I will leave you with my favorite scene in the movie is Deadpool and Wolverine fighting in that Honda minivan. I thought that was filmed so well. The prelude to that, incredibly well. Logan screaming at Deadpool and getting him to shut his fucking mouth, and then them fighting was top tier. In the car was so top tier. That was like my favorite scene of the whole movie. And the second best scene for me would probably be their first fight. That was like the best parts. For me, at least. But I guess let me know what you think. And until next time, that is going to be it for me. I'm out. Thank you for watching.